So let's talk about the Timberwolves. They're one of the most talked about teams in the league consistently because of their consistent efforts to be a championship team, and it's been like this forever. I want to talk about the T Wolves because I think that they're a team which recently has caught a lot of slack, especially for being a team who can't succeed even though they've given everything to succeed. So let's talk about it. I mean, the T Wolves are a team, and I'm just going to tell you how they are constructed. They're constructed by their franchise player, which is Anthony Edwards, right? He's been there now for around 4 years, I think, and or 3 years, and he's a young dude, who plays for them. He got drafted first overall, and he's one of these players which, even though you cannot, you know, rush them into greatness, it's one of the guys who seems ready to be great. He has a great mentality. He plays very well. He plays very hard. And he's one of these guys who's consistently. So, moving on from uh, Ant, we're going to talk also about Cat. Cat is really who's supposed to be the franchise player, and he is in a sense, but let's face it, even though he was drafted as the first overall pick with high expectations, expected to be one of the best players in the league, and even though he has achieved, right, like he's one of the more successful number one picks, right? Like his team has gone to the playoffs twice. They've found good success with him. They've built around him, and he's had a good transition into being the secondary star of his team. But in my opinion, with Cat, the problem is that he does not look like he's getting better. Now, of course, the stats say differently. It's not, but it just doesn't look like he wants to be a superstar. Cat is a passive star. And the reason why I say this, it's because it's true. And Timberwolves fans know it. And it's like there's two types of stars in this league. There's passive stars, and then there's superstars. A passive star could be like a star that just doesn't care about really growing their game, right? It's a star which just wants to play the game. They're not built for being the best player on a championship team, and you know that. And that's happened a lot. Look at Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is a passive star. I mean, shit, you notice it that Klay Thompson doesn't want to be the best player on his team. He doesn't want to be the guy taking every single final shot, dribbling, having to make every play, but also he's never going to back down from a challenge. He's a passive star. Even though, yes, let's face it, Klay Thompson is a phenomenal basketball player, but he's good enough to be paid like a star, but he doesn't play like a superstar. You know what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, that happens with Cat. And that's fine. Sometimes you're going to get players who are like that. Look at Anthony Davis. He's another version of a passive star. I'm sorry. And by the way, he turned into that. But the reason why I say that is because you see that, like, Anthony Davis, when he came into the league, he was ready. He took it upon himself to carry that Minnesota team. But as soon as he could, he went to play with LeBron, maximized his defense, and really, just totaled his offensive bag together. And then chilled. Now he's good. He's getting better each season, and you could tell that he trains a lot. But you could tell he's not the number one of a team. Yes, he can win a championship, and he's a championship caliber player as he's won an NBA championship. But you could see that he's more meant for, the moments where you need a star, right? Like he's clutch and he's good, right? But he's not meant to be the number one option, each and every single day, and I'm sorry for that. He at least needs a co-star, right? Someone who he could hang his hat to, at least on offense, and you could see that with LeBron. Now, of course, Anthony Davis is one of the best examples of this. Since he's won a championship, he's actually competitive in the playoffs, and he's good. But a guy who in one playoff game is like Michael Jordan and Shaq, and in the other playoff game he looks like Kwame Brown, that's an indicator that you might be a passive star, right? Another passive star, from my eyes, right? We could see in Paul George, right? Like Paul George originally, he wasn't. He was a superstar, but ever since he went to the Clippers, you could tell that he's, taking himself aback, right? He's been taken aback by just his injuries and by his extreme, you know, uh, play style that he holds, because all those dunks, all that stuff will tax your body, and he's become a passive star, and there's a lot of examples of this in the league, right? Bam Adebayo is another passive star, right? Like Jimmy Butler is a superstar, but he doesn't want to play hard until the playoffs, and that you can understand. But what I'm saying is, yes, these guys are good. Yes, these guys are not, supposed to be the main player on a championship team. And that's all right. It's the same thing as like Jamal Murray. But really, I'm saying all this to say that that's what Cat is. And we have learned to accept it. That's why people don't hate him for not being a 30-point per game scorer, dominant, getting his team to the playoffs every year. But let's face it, Cat is really good, and even though he is not conclusive to results in the postseason. Then you have Rudy Gobert. And this is really where the Timberwolves mess up, and this is where they found the least success. Everyone apart from Cat and Ant is expendable on that team. And in my opinion, the problem with them is that they run three big men, right? And that's bad, right? They have Cat, they have Gobert, right? And then they have, if I'm not mistaken, it was they had another big man, which also served as like a starting caliber big man. And in my opinion, the problem with the Timberwolves is just their team structure. The Timberwolves are a team which has consistently had a structure to their team which is bad. They've never been phenomenal in their approach and making teams. And we've seen this all throughout history. When they had Kevin Garnett, they failed to put a good team around him. Now they have Anthony Edwards, and they're doing the same thing. And the problem is that I don't think they understand what teams and players need, right? Like, everyone knows you have a big man, he needs a guard. You have a guard, he needs either a big man or a good wing. And people know these kinds of things. Through history, you could see it, right? Like Kareem had Oscar, Magic and Kareem, Kobe and Shaq, etc. The problem with the Timberwolves is that every single time they have a superstar or many superstars, they fail to put the pieces around them and put the coaching staff around them to make enough of a push into the playoffs for anything to be meaningful. And that's what keeps the Timberwolves in purgatory. It's the fact that they've consistently done this. The Timberwolves are a franchise which don't know how to build around their stars. They've consistently not known what to put around their certain players. And we've seen this with Karl Anthony Towns, with Anthony Edwards. We've seen this also with Kevin Garnett. And in my opinion, you could see that even though the Timberwolves want to be a successful team, the problem is that they don't know how to. They don't know how to win enough games to be in the postseason normally. They don't have a good culture in their team which allows them to maximize their stars, and they don't have any formula a team who's never won is never gonna know how to win. Or even if they do find out how to win, it's gonna be hard for them because every superstar that they have either leaves after they get a contract or is not good enough to get you to a championship. And in my opinion, this is the problem with the Wolves, you know? But yeah, I hope that the Wolves get better. I just wanted to talk about their interesting, uh, lineup. They also have Mike Conley at point guard, which even though he's 35 and he's pretty old, he's pretty good. But that's why I didn't talk about him because I just wanted to talk about the heavy hitters. And yeah,